buying the Ferrari Enzo was quite an experience because it was the first car that I had bought over $1 million. So in the beginning, when I was collecting cars, I didn't have so many cars. I had kind of my weekend car, my daily driver, and then my weekend car. And my first one was really a Lamborghini Diablo VT. I quickly changed that to a Ferrari 355 Spider. Now, after that, I've been, changing from 355 to 360, the 430 Coupe, 430 Spider, and so forth. And that was cool. I mean, I like having the weekend car. It was great. But then I didn't drive it a lot because every time I sold it, you would lose money. And because it was a production car, you would lose money on the trade. You would, lose money just because you drove miles on it. So you end up not driving miles on it, and you end up not really enjoying the car to the fullest. So I thought, what can I do? I mean, how do I kind of do that? Well, I said, in talking to people, I can buy investment type of better blue chip type of cars, which means you can drive it and it keeps the value by the time you sell it. I wasn't thinking about making money. And so I said, okay, well, what would that be? Well, I wanted the trio, or the trinity of cars in my collection. So that's really when I consider myself a collector. And this is maybe over 10 years ago. The first one would be from Lamborghini brand, right? So at that time was the Lamborghini Diablo 60. So it was kind of the last of the Lamborghini factory created cars before they sold to VW or Audi, and it was just more perfected. It was a good running car, a very special car, and obviously now it's gone up quite a bit. The second was a Porsche Carrera GT. Now we knew that Carrera GT has been going up too, but at the time, it was still expensive for a Porsche, but I could drive it, and I drove it many miles with that car and wasn't worried about driving it, and so I got to experience that car really good. And then lastly was the Ferrari Enzo. Okay, the Ferrari Enzo was kind of the latest of the supercar, the most highest in performance, and I wasn't worried to drive that car, put some miles on it, and by the time if I needed to sell it and upgrade, I wasn't thinking to collect at that time more of the cars, and it would have kept its value. So that's kind of where I landed, and luckily I did. Buying the Ferrari Enzo was quite an experience because it was the first car that I had bought over $1 million. A lot of the cars, you would buy, even if it's 100, 200, 300. I mean, I know that's a lot of money, but that's still, and it's more common kind of in the car community now because these cars are all, that kind of price. But when you reach the level 500, 700, it's a lot more, but over $1 million, it's definitely psychologically a big barrier to get over. Because when you buy a car that much, well, I guess some people, if they don't intend to drive it and they put it, it's like an art piece, which a lot of people do, then, it's like furniture. But I intended to drive it. My whole thing was to drive it. So when, the insurance to buy to cover it, to drive on the streets, now you're worried not so much that, are you going to drive and crash, because you can be responsible in that matter, but then will other people crash into you? On the roads, will the potholes or the condition of the road damage your car? The rock chips, all that kind of stuff, right? So there was a whole psychology. And then when you're driving, I remember in the beginning, wow, this is $1 million car, over $1 million car. It's like a real estate property, a house that you're driving on the road, and it was quite a psychological barrier that I had to get over. I want to kind of tell you a little story about me and my relationship with Andy Cohen, who was my broker for many years. Unfortunately, he had passed away recently, and but I want to kind of remind myself and tell you about the time that we were together. And this was kind of really our first transaction. So he found me this Ferrari Enzo in Florida. And you know, so Andy was very knowledgeable, and he had told me, represent, this car is the perfect car. And you know, there's a lot of Enzos at the time that the headlights would fog up, but this one didn't. In the condition of it, the mechanical, everything was running really good. Okay, so you would trust that, and a lot of people out there, do you really trust it is the question, because they say that, and by the time you get the car, it's not like that, and then you have a problem, right? So having a trusted person representing, and in this case, Andy, which then later on became really my personal broker, which then later on I bought so many cars through him and sold many through him. But in the beginning of a relationship, it was the Enzo. Now, the Enzo came from there, from the dealer there, got on the transport, came to me. By the time it came, when there was unloading, it was smoking. There was some smoke and there was a clutch smell. So, you know, Andy was there, I was there, and that was weird. We didn't have that when it left in Florida. So obviously, in between somewhere, maybe, I don't know, maybe the guy didn't know how to load the car, or maybe they took it for a joyride in the middle somewhere. Anyways, burned the clutch. Now, it could have been a very messy situation. It could have been, well, Andy says, well, hey, the dealer says that sold the car said, hey, you know, it was fine working when it left the, you know, the dealership. It could be the transport company said, hey, we didn't drive, we just loaded on and came over here. Obviously, the broker could say, well, you know what, I'm just, you know, I wasn't involved in any of the physical movement of the car. How am I responsible? I could have left kind of left with a bag. Now, I could have sued everybody too, but you know, who wants to do that? I'll tell you, but Andy, what he did was, you know what, his name, his reputation was important. He represented a car that was perfect, wasn't smoking or anything like that. So he took it on his own money to have it repaired, so that after it came back to me, it was what he represented, a perfect car. Now, I wanted to tell you that story first because as a, you know, a sentimental and a reminder of Andy, well, who Andy was to me, but also the fact of business ethics. You know, I have 3 business ethics, right? Working hard with perseverance, and working hard with integrity. This is really a shown of integrity, okay? Long-term thinking, you know, being behind your word. And you know what? After that, I had 90% of the cars that I bought, if they weren't new, it was through Andy. I gave him the business because I trusted that he stands behind what he says. So that's really my first experience with that, buying the Enzo, and how that came through. Hi everybody, I'm back at my Walnut store, and I don't know if everybody knows what I do for a living. Part of my business is jewelry and watches, and we've been doing this since 1965. I'm the second generation. I started retail in the luxury watch retailing, right? So we're here in Walnut store, and I wanted to share with you, you know, because as you know, I pair a watch with the car that I'm going to drive. So let's look at in my collection which one we're going to pair with the car. So here we have 3 Roger Dubuis watches. You know, Roger Dubuis is a very well made watchmaker. Roger Dubuis had worked at Patek Philippe for many years, and he's a lead engineer of watchmaker. Came out and started his own company. Did some really amazing watches. So here we have the rose gold Roger Dubuis. It's a little smaller than the other size. It's got the skeletonized tourbillon, so that's a great watch. Here we got a blue Alcantara carbon case, so more sporty, bigger, with the red marks, and so this is pretty cool. But you know, I'm definitely going to go with this one here with the red Alcantara and the red markers, carbon. I think this is a really smart look. You know, the Enzo has a lot of carbon fiber, so with the carbon case is perfect. So this is going to definitely be my choice for the watch pairing with the Enzo. Now, these two watches are really cool. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think I should pair this with? Which other car that I have?